So last year when you went to LA, how much of the plan would you say you had coming in, and how much was informed with, okay, this is what Jalen can do, this is what John can do, this is what Aaron can do, this is going to inform the way we want to play? How like what ratio is there as you build the plan in its entirety?
I think specifically when I went and interviewed with Sean, those were the three guys that I felt like we could build around. I felt like those were the three guys that I felt like we could engineer the system around. And I felt like, AD's versatility, playing inside or outside, any technique that we could really engineer some stuff for him, that we could also get him playing some different techniques that I felt like could benefit our team. I thought it would benefit him, but I felt like it could benefit our team. And Aaron Donald, to me, he had his best year last year. I know that he had more sacks like a couple years ago, but I felt like he played his best ball, and I felt like our team defense was a reflection of that. And I thought he was just remarkable last year. Just can't say enough about him. We could spend a whole podcast talking about Aaron.
Just the way
But
that
then,
you would use him on third down as like a missile going
yeah,
across three gaps, and it's just the way that you could deploy him to make everyone else better in the pass rush game was just so cool to watch.
his brain, just like being able to, to line him up all these different places. He's got to have, the football IQ to be able to do it, and he's got to have that command over all these different techniques and right side, left side, edge, inside, shade, two eye, 3, 4, 5. I mean, he plays all over and can do it. And so that's why Aaron is who he is, and that's why he deserves all the credit in the world for being one of the dominant defensive players to ever play this game. And a big part of it is because of his brain. Okay, because this guy is so sharp. I mean, he is like a freaking Bengal tiger, ready in the jungle. He's got just this awareness that is just it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
Other than I guess everyone watches it unfold, but I'm telling you, this guy is just so sharp, and I'm so thankful for the guy. But I felt like we start, with Aaron, and then you knew Jalen. To me, I was aware that Jalen was more than just a corner. Okay. And I felt like at corner, there was still more in him that I felt like, could express itself. I felt like he could play better off, playing a little bit more square to the formation. I felt like he could see a little bit more, where he could be a little bit more of a playmaker, where
Mm-hmm.
if you're always playing bump and your back's to the ball a lot, like, you're decreasing the amount of plays that he's going to be able to make. Right.
Yep.
And so we wanted to be able to change his fundamentals from that standpoint. And then when he was playing bump, give him different leverages to take advantage of, so he could do what he does best, and then move him into the slot where, hey, he could follow a great receiver, or like, hey, if it's a team that kind of, hey, maybe they're a cut split team, and they don't really allow you to play outside bump, like maybe we can get him closer to the action as a blitzer, as a slot defender, because he's such a instinctive player. He's physical. He's a really good open field tackler. I mean, this guy could go back to safety and he'd be a first team all pro. I mean,
Especially with the way you use your safeties.
yeah, he could be a corner. I mean, and matter of fact, I used to joke with this guy all the time. And I guess now that I'm we're not together, I feel like I can say it because we've talked about it. It's like, I like his play style a lot more inside. I always used to joke with him. I was like, I think you're more locked in inside, like outside, you just kind of, you got some reps that I don't like, and we kind of joke about it. I'm like, when you're in the slot, I'm like, you're always in the stance, you're always locked in. And just his play style is just a little bit more attractive for me. Yeah, you start with him and doing all that. And then JJ, we just felt like, whether it was playing in the deep part of the field, being an organizer, playing dime money, just felt like, he was our green dot. He was our signal caller. He led the way for us last year. And, those three guys are pretty special.
And I think with Joey and with Derwin, on its face, they're different players. They play different positions than Jalen and Aaron do. So you don't have to tell me specifically how it's going to look, but what is the process of understanding their strengths and using that to filtering your defense through those ideas?
Yeah, I think that, you take a look at Joey and Derwin. Those are two great places to start. Those are two first-team All-Pro players. I think that they're unique players. Joey, one of the premier edge players in the league. I know that coaching, Khalil, Vaughn, Bradley, Leonard, those guys, we always watch Joey Bosa, just in terms of his ability his get off, his hands, his bend, his burst to close. I mean, he had all that. He has all that. And now he has a lot more experience, so we're just hoping that we can take advantage of that. Certainly working with those other edge guys, I feel like we have a framework of how to use them. But I know that he's going to be going forward in a real playmaking role for us. And then, Derwin's he's a unique player. I mean, I think there's like the analytics combine. There's been like 4 DBs in the last 20 years or something to have like this set of combine numbers, and one of them was Ramsey and the other one's Derwin, and when you're with Derwin, you see it, you see, like, if they were right next to each other, you would say, okay, like, those guys, I get it, like, because they look very, very similar, because they're both over, they're really close to 210. I mean, they're bigger guys, 6'1", and then 4'4", 41 vert, they've got all that stuff. They're both DBs, okay, like, they can do anything. And that's Derwin.
They played the same position in college. They both played that star spot at Florida State, which is hilarious.
Derwin's just and he's just he's one of these magnetic igniters. The leadership you can't minimize with him, and it's been a lot of fun teaming up with him. And certainly you get a head start with him, because of him and Jalen being so close. And that's what I think has been cool about it, is just the best business is referral, right? Just getting a head start with him through Jalen's been awesome. But I think that those two guys are certainly really good places to start for the Chargers. And, and then, Kenneth Murray, Jerry Tillery, these guys, Nas Adderley, we're trying to take advantage of who we got with the Chargers. We got Vato Davis, a young corner who's really up and coming. And so that's what you got to do, Robert, is you got to go into each situation and you got to assess, okay, this is how we need to play, because we can't copy paste. You can't, like Control V, you can't do that. Like that doesn't exist in the NFL. There'll be some things maybe, that are similar, but we got to take advantage of this group. And that's what it has been really fun to, to get started with this springtime, was just laying that foundation with these guys. And, like, you got a guy like Chris Harris, I mean, with the Chargers, Strap's one of the elite, DBs of the last 10 years, and being able to team back up with him. We were in Denver in 19, and just like Chris being a quarterback for us, and, using all his experiences to help us out has been awesome too. So I'm looking forward to it.
I want to ask you about the offense really quick, because one of the things that you've said multiple times that I find super interesting is that you never wanted to contract out the offense. You never wanted to be a defensive coach who didn't have a hand in that side of the ball, which I think is a really smart way to think about it, because then you have established principles within the team that don't travel if the offensive coordinator happens to leave. It allows you to sustain success. So first of all, what does that look like in practice? How do you, as a defensive-minded head coach, let's call you that to be fair, how do you imprint what your values are onto your offensive approach?
Yeah, Robert, I think it's a really good point. And, I've used that term subcontractor because, if you subcontract something, it can be taken from you, and I think that, you never want that. And I think that the great businesses, organizations, teams, they have an identity, and football, it just happens. You got to have to have an identity in all three phases of the game. And what I wanted was complementary systems in all three phases of the game. And certainly if you start with our system on defense, okay, because that's, the side of the ball that I've come up under, how we play, I wanted a system that mirrored that, multiple groupings, being able to play game plan specific, being able to move people around, take advantage of who you have or who you don't have. And then, certainly feature, your quarterback, that to me is like where every offense starts, is you got to feature your quarterback. And so I felt like in looking at that hire, and it's obviously a huge one, as everybody knows, especially with a quarterback like ours and an offensive skill group like ours. I just felt like when you hire Joe Lombardi, a guy that I know extremely well, that offense that I know extremely well, that's the offense that I came up under, that I learned from a young age to now, and have seen it evolve and shape over, 15 years. I felt like that would fit us best, and it would fit Justin Herbert best. And I felt like,
why do you say that? What aspect of his game do you think aligns with that type of offense? Because I've never heard you say that. I'm curious about it.
Yeah, I felt like, putting the game in the hands of the quarterback from an identification standpoint, being able to give him a lot of tools at the line of scrimmage to operate, having a lot of different types of passes, formationally, because you play in a lot of groupings, you can dictate a lot of different formations to the offense, to the defense. And then from a passing game standpoint, you got a lot of passes to defend, against that team. There's a lot of passes, play action passes, keepers, 5-step, 3-step, empty, screens. I felt like when you think about that, you kind of think about our defense and all the coverages you got to play against, all the fronts you got to play against, all the pressures. And so I wanted an offense that could mirror that. And I felt like I wanted our offense to run through Justin Herbert, and I didn't want our offense to run through somebody else, where someone else was kind of responsible for making it work. I wanted him to make it work. And I think that's what's been fun to sort of get started.
Rather than the quarterback being somebody who pulls the levers that the play caller is telling him to pull, you wanted Justin to be the one that's pulling all the levers.
Correct. And that's it's an ongoing process. It's not going to happen overnight. And I know that he's going into his second year. But I think that ultimately those are the most dangerous quarterbacks that you defend, where the quarterback becomes the system, and studying the great players that have played that position. And certainly guys I look up to from a coaching standpoint, like a Jimmy Johnson, Bill Belichick, a Pete Carroll, Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, these guys. And then, Bill Parcells is a guy that I've just, since I was a little kid, just always admired. Their quarterbacks have all played really, really well. And they've had continuity with their head coach, and they've had continuity with their systems. And I think that that's something that a defensive coach can provide, and hopefully I can provide it, to our team, not just Justin Herbert, but to our team, is that other side, that extra education that hopefully can, sort of complete their thinking and help us be the team that we're capable of being.
Last one. I'm curious about this because you mentioned Belichick. He and Brady met every week. They had a sit down where they would talk about ideas and this is what they're trying to do to you. Do you plan on having that sort of consistent communication meeting with Justin where you guys are going to have some of those back and forths to kind of let him know, from my defensive brain, this is what people are trying to do to defend you?
Yeah, we've already started it. So for sure, the answer is yes. And I would say it's the same thing that I did with John Johnson, Ramsey, Micah Kaiser. We have our signal caller meetings throughout the week. Defensively last year, our game plan meetings, before the game, rank them, going into the game plan, from a, just a signal caller meeting. It'll be similar. Obviously, a little bit different because Joe and Shane and that group of guys will be, with the actual game plan. But I think that going into the week is hopefully, linking up with Justin and our guys on offense, Corey Lindsley, our signal callers, and then doing the same thing in defense, and then doing the same thing in the kicking game. I think that that's incumbent upon you as a head coach. And I think that's how you create a connected team that is going to go into the week at least knowing, hey, this is what our plan is to win, And I think that when you get, whether or not you get it done, at least everyone knows what the plan is, and then how to adjust the plan if it doesn't go well. So I'm excited about that part of it. I've really enjoyed that part about being a head coach, is being able to impact all three phases of the game, not just one. And so certainly, we're going to find out a lot more in training camp.
Getting to put your quarterback hat back on.
Yeah, that's I miss, I joke with people, guys, offense never left me. I'm a quarterback coaching defense, that's all it is. And and I think that certainly, if not one of the biggest, probably the biggest reason why I'm here is the way I kind of look at the game and how I try to coach all of our defensive players. And they'll tell you that, is I try to get them to see the game through the eyes of the quarterback and think like the quarterback, because ultimately that's the guy that you got to beat.